And you may begin.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Shrewd Dudes podcast. We are back for Tuesday Newsday, and this week we got a bunch of stuff to cover. Apparently, it is on. We got a little MMA action in of all places in Congress.
Senate.
Huh?
The Senate.
The Senate. Just basically that is Congress. Just different part of the Congress, but it's gonna get good. We're also going to take a little tour over Active Volcano and a house party, kids party, that it's not very kid-friendly, and there's a lot of stuff like that going on. We're also going to cover some entertainment news. For the Marble sucks. Trump just lit up New York, and Hassan Piker apparently loves to say dumb things on his show. In Israel news, we're going to cover some both bad developments and good developments, and then we're going to go through some stories of some very crazy things happening to children. You're not going to want to miss this week's episode of the Shrewd Dudes podcast.
No. To bed now. Curtis, you are older than them. Take them to bed. Apologies. Welcome
Dang, man.
to Tuesday Newsday. Sometimes, Curtis riles them up. And currently, sometimes they can watch a little bit of TV on Tuesdays when I start the show. But the TV remote is missing, and the buttons are broken.
Dang, man.
So there's supposed to be a new remote coming tomorrow, but today it's nothing. Anyways, so welcome back to another Tuesday Newsday. If you're joining us on Twitch, of course, you can leave us any comments or questions that you have. If you wish for your comments or questions to be addressed at the end of the show, then you can leave them in the responses or comments to our Twitter page. So we look forward to any questions or commentary that people may have. And of course, before we get started into today's show in earnest, I know I saw you on Friday, Danny, but anything else interesting happened during your weekend?
What did we do on Friday again?
We played board games.
That's right. That was a fun time.
And
we played a very long board game that night.
Exceptionally long board game.
It only took long because most of the moves people didn't fully understand them, so it took them a while to decide on a lot of the moves. So like
No.
Yeah, he was.
No. Kevin did not take long to move. Dan
depends.
Carey took the longest to move because Dan Carey wanted to evaluate every. He was basically treating the game like chess, and I'm like, Dan, it is midnight.
Yes.
Stop it.
Yeah, that's the Dan thing. If he doesn't understand the game, he will.
A Dan thing.
He will basically think about it hard. So that was fun. That was very enjoyable.
Yeah, and Steph's just what time is it? I'm like, past 1. He's like, why are we still here? I'm like,
explain.
That is a good question. That is a very good question.
Yeah, it went faster when just the three of us were playing.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. So
you have to make those decisions when you play a game.
You sometimes have to make the sacrifices for the greater good, and this was not one of those instances.
The greater good.
The greater good.
The greater good.
Exactly. All right.
Yeah.
So,
what about you, man? How you?
Anything else during the rest of the weekend?
My mom and I went to see a movie called After Death, which I definitely recommend. Angel Studios. It's chronicles the testimonies of people with near-death experiences, and it was something else. It was a very, very, very well done movie. Incredibly well told testimonies, and some of the testimonies were not of people who went to see the light, but people who actually descended into some kind of version of hell. And it got a little freaky at some points. So you're like, oh my gosh, the kind of things people recount. It's pretty crazy. So I recommend you see it if you haven't seen it. It's a really good movie.
Yeah. Oh,
What about yourself, man?
Oh no, it's just
Checking out
apparently.
the
Okay, so Sound of Freedom,
Mhm.
because that's of course another film by Angel Studios. So
Yep.
it's now available. Apparently, as of today.
Oh,
It's
really?
now
Today?
it's now available to stream for Angel Guild members.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So I don't know what being an Angel Guild member is.
It
But
means you pay a little bit extra
Yeah.
to be part of it. Yeah,
So maybe we'll do it for 1 month and have a movie night.
yeah, that's right.
Anyways,
Especially if
so
it's content.
yeah, and then I had people over on Sunday night for Dungeons and Dragons, and I killed some of my players,
Yes, you do.
and I know some of them watch the show, so I'm coming for you next. So, and
That's crazy, man.
another thing, we have a new logo.
Yes, we do. Steven went all out.
Well, I don't know if I don't know if I went all out. I was just kind of like, I'm gonna fiddle. I'm gonna fiddle.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fiddle.
You're gonna fiddle.
Oh, that looks kind of cool. Cool.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah. It's very artsy.
It is quite artsy. And then, of course, we also have a new Facebook banner.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
I saw it. Yeah, that's the one that is that the one that Stephanie made?
Yeah, it's kind of like a one that Stephanie made, kind of a transparent background. It's not bad.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I remember when Steph
I
showed me
reckon
that, and I
it
was like, this is pretty cool.
It's pretty nifty, man.
And then, like,
I mean, we're always coming up with new stuff. Like, it's
well, yeah,
always worth
like,
it.
because Canva,
Yep.
you can use. So, like, if you want to make a bit of a logo and you're trying to like think of stuff,
Mhm.
Canva has like a basic AI tool.
Yep.
That you can use, and it doesn't follow instructions amazingly well. But if you have basic instructions for it, then it's not bad. So, like,
Pretty cool,
I was trying to set up something like during the game because it was like, oh, like this seems like something cool if AI can draw it, and it was like a dwarf like latching onto a dragon as it flies through the sky, and then the AI gave me a dwarf dragon.
No.
And I'm like,
I mean,
cool, but no.
comes up with good stuff. Comes up with really good stuff.
And I'm like, that's not what I'm looking for. But anyways, so let's jump into the stuff we have to talk about today. And first off, we're going to cover an interesting little incident that happened in the Senate today.
Oh, this was crazy.
So, yeah, so it says in it on this senator from Nebraska, but it clearly says senator from Oklahoma.
Mhm.
So either this is wrong or the Nebraska thing is wrong. So let's just watch.
Sir, this is a time, this is a place. If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big guy.
Oh, stop it.
Oh,
Say
it's
hi.
on. It's on. It is
Sit
on.
down. Sit down. Look at you. You know, you're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Active.
please.
Oh, okay.
Sit down, please.
All right.
Can I respond? Mr.
Hold
Chair?
it. Hold it.
Barney.
Thank you, Congresswoman Mc.
Yep. So that's kind of funny.
I mean, you know what it reminds me of? Like, do you ever see that the movie Get Smart?
Yes.
Like the one with Steve
yes,
Carell?
it does. Where like they
vice
have the
president's
fight.
like, bring it on, bring it on.
Like
Let's
they
go.
have the CIA director. He's like, "Oh, let's go, tough guy."
Yep.
They have an
It's
all-out brawl.
Yeah, no, it's something you normally don't see. Like the fact that like Bernie Sanders, but that was Bernie Sanders, right? Who was
Yeah,
like
that was
saying,
Bernie.
calm it down. He's
You're
calling
the United States Senator.
ceasefire. No fighting today.
No fighting today.
Yeah. By the way, we're starting early with the
Oh yes, we
the
are.
the pro-terrorism talking points. Are
Well,
starting
okay,
early,
like
in
here.
this
All right, hello, Mossab.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. Don't really care because you're supporting terrorism. But
Mhm.
do you support from the river to the sea? Palestine will be Jew free, because
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what it actually means.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But you can feel free to address that in the comments, even if Hamas is. You don't just
Yeah,
kill 11,000 people. Again,
Yeah. So again,
we haven't even addressed this with you, but we've addressed this many, many times.
yeah. So, but well, can I touch on some of those things really quick before we
Please
move
do.
on?
Please do.
Okay. So first of all, the idea that Hamas liberation movement that because Israel occupied Palestine, Israel was formed. There's never been a Palestinian state ever. That's not a thing. Okay. And what happened was in 1948, Israel, the state of Israel was formed as an attempt to create a solution between all these competing states who all had claims to the land. What happened then, as soon as Israel was born as a state or established a state, the United States, the UK, and France, all the major players, they all basically backed out and they're like, you're on your own. And guess what? Every single Arab nation around them, every single Arab nation around Israel decided to attack Israel at the same time. And guess what? They failed. And Israel was able to hold them off and actually retain its sovereignty. And then they tried again in 1967 and they failed. Every single time the Arab states around Israel tried their best to basically eliminate and annihilate all the Jews. So yeah, the idea that the Jews were oppressors from the beginning is garbage. If anyone was oppressors, was the Arab nations around them. This is just like pro-Palestine propaganda that is it's constantly it's not even good propaganda. It's not even good talking points. Israel has been trying to fight for its survival since its inception. The fact that Israel right now has the ability to hold off all the aggressive forces around them is only it's because they basically now people are mad. We're like, well, Israel's too strong to take out now, so let's just go after them, right? By the way, I only condemn Hamas for killing civilians. Do you believe that removing Hamas is the solution to the problem with the whole Gaza Strip? Yes or no? That's a real question.
It's not their land.
Whether or not, even if you want to make that claim that this is their land, even if you want to make that claim, Hamas it's hurting its own people. It's indoctrinating people, creating a new breed and a new, every generation they're trying to create a brand new generation of terrorists.
Well, let's actually just watch that video right now.
Yeah,
let's watch that. Let's watch the video from the UN school.
Okay.
Let's
just to show you them.
Just to show you.
Let's
just do it.
Media propaganda. Of course it is. This is the typical answer. So go for it.
Here we go. Well, this is them interviewing students at the UN school in Jerusalem. So you know, this is stuff that you encourage to teach your children.
The Palestinian Arab problem.
في ناس بحبوا فلسطين بدهم يحاربوا
Palestine are ready to die
عشان فلسطين. أنا بدي أهزمهم بالحرب.
They want to fight against the Jews and defeat them in war. At school, they teach us that Al-Aqsa and all of Palestine is ours. The Jews lie and say that their temple is under the Al-Aqsa Mosque. It was never there. I hate the Jews. Yes, they teach us that the Zionists are our enemy. We must fight them. They teach us that the Jews are terrorists. At school, they teach us about the Jews. They teach us that they are bad people, they killed our young. They teach us in school the Jews are fickle, bad people. I am ready to stab a Jew and drive a car over them. I will fight.
Yeah.
I will ram a car into the Jews. We have to constantly stab them, drive them over and stab the Jews. Stabbing and running over Jews brings dignity to the Palestinians. I'm going to run them over and stab them with knives. Right now I'm prepared to be a suicide bomber. With Allah's help, I will fight for ISIS, the Islamic State.
Okay. You can. Okay, the fact that you can watch that video, this is literally teaching kids to be murderers.
Yep.
To kill anybody and anybody. If you're a Jew, stab. If you're watching that video and you're saying, "Oh, we're not anti-Jews," explain that video. Explain that video to me. well, we're not anti-Jews. We just want to. The only good Jew is a dead Jew, but we're not anti-Jew. What are you talking about? Like we want more dead Jews. More dead Jews, better.
Just
you know?
the ISIS part? Just the ISIS part?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have any issues with the rest?
Yeah. By the way, Stephen, I posted a video right there, like
on the Discord? Or in the chat? Okay, sure.
Can you pull that up really quick?
Yeah, sure.
This was on another show that I was watching today. By the way, this is what they're teaching. Okay, if you're wondering, not the Palestinians are not anti-Jew. Like, this is what children are being taught in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's on their own television. So this is a video about like a Mickey Mouse style like character, and apparently he got martyred in the final episode of the show called Pioneers for Tomorrow. And this show is basically trying to tell you, like, it's like the Jews are responsible for all the bad things that happen,
things in the world,
all the evil things. You can play a little bit of that. By the way, they're very, very loud and very angry in this show. This is a show for children, by the way. And you can probably fast forward.
أتمنى سموها تل أبيب بعد ما احتلوها بيئة. أتمنى يا جدي.
انت ما إلك مين قال فرفور، لكن المطلوب بدك تجيب له وراك، يعني بدك تجيب له وراك.
Children's programming.
Screaming at each
other. فرفور.
Yep.
Oh, now it's frozen.
بدك تجيب له.
Just stabs him.
Oh, just stabs him. Kill him.
Oh my gosh!
And at the very end of that, they have like the kids are saying like they're having a little memorial for Farfour. Farfour, the poor innocent, he killed by those darn Jews, those evil Jews, and all that kind of stuff.
Okay,
it's
So 5,000 children died.
Okay, first of all, where did you get those numbers?
Oh yeah, that's a
question.
big one. The Israelis just actually changed their death toll from 1,400 to 1,200. That took them a month to do that.
Because
Hamas announced within 30 minutes that they claimed that 500 people had died in the hospital bombing, which was total nonsense. But believe Hamas all you want.
Right. 500 had died, and over 500 were also injured. So
the UN also produced the children that said "death to the Jews." So maybe not the best source, but.
Yeah.
But anyways, so even if these numbers are correct, who put the children in harm's way?
Mm-hmm.
Who put them in harm's way?
Like, who is responsible for that?
Who is responsible for all of this?
Mm-hmm.
And the simplest way, I'll ask you this question: if Hamas had the technological power of Israel, if everything was reversed, what would happen?
Yeah, if Hamas had all the military power and Israel didn't.
Yeah.
And people never answer this question honestly.
Mm-hmm.
They
I had a guy come tell me and try and say 100% legitimately, as far as he was thinking, that if Hamas had the power of Israel, then there would be peace. And I'm like, you're telling me that an organization that openly calls to wipe out all non-Muslims in the world, genocide all Jews and kill all the infidels in the world, that they would not go and kill the Israelis. It's complete bunk.
Quick answer to Masab here. So I've heard this excuse before. So if a criminal came to your house, kidnapped your mom, and used her like a human shield, would you be happy if the police officer shot them both? Here's the answer to that. What you're advocating for is saying, like, you know what? We should just let him go and get away with it and take your mom away and do whatever he wants with her. That's the solution. Let's let him take your mom away and rape and murder her, because you know what? We can't do anything. We can't even try to intervene. We should just stop doing anything. Okay. That's the answer that most people are doing. Well, here's what I say to people.
This is also actually a fest. A false analysis, because the real analysis is if there is a shootout between the cop and if a criminal shoots at the cops and they both run into a house and they have your mom hostage, and the cop, in this instance, if the cop is Israel, the cop takes every single chance that they have to avoid shooting them both.
Yeah.
To
Which is what
avoid
Israel
both
does.
casualties, which is what
Which is
Israel
what
does.
Israel
And that is
does.
absolutely undeniable. You cannot
Yes.
release millions of pamphlets. You cannot have a corridor where people can travel in the middle of a war. Israel,
Yeah.
by every recognizable standard, has
Mm-hmm.
done more to protect civilians during a wartime than any other nation in human history.
Yeah. And Israel, like, you
And
know,
we are
and
from Canada.
it's also a false comparison, because the problem is that they say, like, oh, Israel is killing children and so did Hamas. I'm like, no. There's a very big difference. Hamas terrorists, they went into Israel and they hunted. And I'm not even making this up. Hamas themselves shot video of themselves hunting. They even like actually took children and got them to go into the neighborhood and call people in the hopes that they would like peek their heads out of their houses and like so they could shoot them on the spot. That was Hamas. They hunted humans and innocent civilians. Israel is fighting a war in an urban place. Okay, there's I always challenge people this. Name me a single war in the last 100 years where where the war was taking place in a city or in an urban area and no civilian casualties happened. Name me one war. I challenge you. One war where there was no civilian casualties, period. All the way back to World War II, to World War I, anytime a war was taking place in an urban environment, you had civilian casualties. So don't give me this idea that, oh, Israel can somehow magically attack an enemy force that is bunkering down in a city on purpose and hiding underneath civilians. Okay? Hamas themselves they built their underground tunnels under hospitals. They put their rockets in beside like children's playgrounds. We've talked about this. They intentionally put civilians in harm's way, which is a war crime. If there's anybody committing war crimes, it is Hamas. The problem is not Israel. The problem is Hamas. If Hamas and all their terrorist network, if all the fighters surrender today, Israel would stop the war, because that is the goal. Okay? The war is about stopping Hamas. Yep. And Hamas, instead of actually fighting honorably, they're hiding
like
under
despicable cowards.
Yeah. They still have and
they actively take every measure that they can to not only put civilians in harm's way, but to purposely prevent them from leaving conflict zones so that they can use that as ammunition for gullible fools to use to blame Israel.
Yeah, exactly.
And we can talk about this all day. That's not the point of the show. So simple, final question. Is Hamas a terror group? We're going to ask you the same question that Piers Morgan asked the leader of the Labour Party. And the leader of the Labour Party would not answer the question. Is Hamas a terror group?
Yeah, because you have to make a distinction. People are trying to hide behind the idea that I support Palestine but not Hamas. But in reality, it's just a thin veneer for support for Hamas. The problem, I always say to people, the only thing a ceasefire accomplishes is it only prolongs this war longer. Because if you give a ceasefire, that only helps Hamas to regroup, resupply, and then they can fight longer, which means more dead civilians, more dead children, more dead everything. Okay? So if you want this war to end, and if you actually want a peaceful resolution with less dead people, guess what? You need to advocate for Hamas to surrender and to stop this foolish war,
this meaningless slaughter.
Yes, because they are responsible.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that instigated this war. Israel did not launch into Gaza because they just we're bored today. Let's just go in there.
Let's just go in and start killing people indiscriminately.
And Hamas is intentionally hoarding fuel and is hoarding water and is hoarding all sorts of supplies that they themselves could protect and supply and keep their people alive. No. It's the international community's job to take care of our people. We're gonna basically get in our bomb shelters and the more of our civilians die, the better, because that's gonna help our war effort because we can use it as propaganda. So no, it doesn't work that way. So what if you would agree for me to take half of Canada and make my own state, and when you fight back, you're a terrorist and kill 11,000 from your people? See, this is the argument that people make. If you are the oppressed, every single thing you do is legal and can never be scrutinized. That is not a moral position. Okay? Even if you are kept, like, even if on the worst case scenario you were kidnapped and you were like kept alone by the person that kidnapped you, I would still argue that you are not justified in going up and stabbing that person and decapitating them and dismembering them. Like, no. That doesn't make you like justified in everything that you want. Okay? There are still like, rules that you have to follow. You can't just like justify any kind of human atrocity because you're an oppressed person. That does not work that way. Okay? And no, Canada is an existing nation. Palestine, when Israel was established,
was designed by the Romans to insult the Jews. That's what it was designed to do.
But in 1947 and 48, when the state of Israel was established, there was no nation present. There was no. You're a liar. I'm sorry. You are a liar.
False.
That is verifiably false. There was never a Palestinian state ever historically. It never existed. There was Palestinian people, but there was never a Palestinian state. So no, I'm sorry. This is just incorrect.
Yeah.
Never been.
Okay.
Let's
we're still gonna like answer the bloody question. You can't, then piss off.
I mean, you can try to do your best to have this the thing, but
we can go back and forth. We just don't care. Like, if you're unwilling to call Hamas a terror group, then go be some crazy radical pissant somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's go and actually interesting things. So this is a little video that Danny found.
This is great. This is
drone footage over an active volcano. Very
so
intriguing.
this is in Iceland. Iceland is
famous for this.
Yes, they had to evacuate an entire town because there were like crazy earthquakes that were placed in that town, and they're really worried that this volcano was going to explode. But this guy took a video
with his drone.
With a drone. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So check this out. Check this out.
When you have the sound on, you can really hear the.
Don't start to fail.
He flew it fairly well.
Oh my gosh, I melted so many props. I destroyed the GoPro.
Worth it, though. That was epic. Yep. But something that was not epic, following up with that video, of something truly cool to something truly terrible. But it's actually interesting because we looked at the mantra and the encouragement of how Palestinians raise their youth, and unfortunately, this is sometimes in some areas of the United States how blacks raise their youth. So let's just. This is horrifying.
This is what's going on here.
So if you're not watching, there are children dancing with lots of money and Glocks.
Guns.
Yeah, and just pointing them at people, and just dancing and just I'm looking cool with all my money and guns. It's basically a gangster party. It's this is not something that you should be encouraging. Why are you encouraging this as a culture? Why are you encouraging this as a society? This is truly deplorable. You wonder why this mentality and this lifestyle is so appealing to children, because you push it and you encourage it every gosh darn day. Come on. Are you expecting any different?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. people always ask, like, what is going on with the Black community, and particularly, like, what's going on with so many like boys. Like, there's a real problem in the Black community in the United States where like what is it, like, they Black community makes up 13%
13%.
of all Americans, but they also commit like 46% of all violent crime, which is a massively disproportionate like number. And this is like unique for the Black community. And a lot of people have actually theorized that, like, one of the problems is that there's a cultural issue in Black community that exists primarily there, in some ways, in others, but not quite as prominently. Which is the idea that being a gangster, being violent felon, being part of a gang, and all that kind of stuff is considered to be like cool and something to aspire to. And this kids show, this kids party,
Kids program,
kind of follows that trajectory pretty well. It actually like reinforces the idea that yes, this is an actual thing that they will obviously follow. It's pretty crazy. So, yeah, we're not surprised. It's sad because, again, these kids are being taught by like adults things that really you're almost treading on fire when you're teaching kids dangerous things like this. It's like, like, oh, your kid's actually beating up a whole bunch of other kids at school. I'm like, I wonder why. Like, this is the kind of like mentality that leads to that. So it's something, yeah, watch out for this. This is like this kind of stuff that you won't believe. But again, speaking of people who were not raised right, let's talk about like the what happened recently with Megan Rapinoe.
My goodness.
Yeah, who was like the entitlement queen.
The entitlement queen.
Yes.
Oh, so, this is just the face of so much entitlement.
Everything entitlement is there. Go for it.
I mean, I'm not a religious person or anything, and if there was a God, like, this is proof that there isn't, because this is f***ed up. Yeah, it's just f***ed up, you guys. Like,
is that so?
Eat my Achilles. I mean, what?
Have y'all ever noticed that it's the people that reject?
You notice something interesting there?
Well, what was that?
What was the only sponsor?
Mm-hmm.
What was the only sponsor in the background?
Oh, I didn't catch that. Let's see.
Look at the stream.
Bud Light. Of course they are. Of course they are.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yep. I was like, oh, yep. Saw that one coming.
Yeah. Now here's the thing with Megan Rapinoe. The funny thing is, I always find it hilarious that people who are not religious feel somehow like they could lecture religious people about their own faith. Right? They always feel like, like, well, I don't know anything about your religion or your faith or anything about your religious book, but I'm pretty sure I can pretty much lecture you and tell you exactly what is and isn't real or something like that. I'm like, at very least, this woman who, like, is like, well, that's proof that God doesn't exist. I'm like, actually, if anything, that might be proof that God does exist.
Yep. The bad are punished.
You basically were a God-hating, terrible human being, and you're like, oh, you got your comeuppance? Funny how that works. Even like, it's almost like there was some verse in the Bible that talks about what happens to the proud and those who are arrogant and full of themselves. Like, funny, it's almost like if only there was some verse that talked about that. God, silly me, Mr. Bible thumper traditional. My goodness. But by the way, so she pissed off a lot of people in the United States, and so she got some backlash for this, and that is definitely covered by the Fox News story that you're going to pull up here, Stephen.
Yep. I'm just making a
He's
title
all over
card.
He's all over it. By the way, just while Steven's doing the title card, so Mossab, this is what they do. This is what people who...
Oh, did he? Oh, no,
he just pieced out. He pieced out.
Oh, yeah, well, no, because I was just, like, I was so done. I'm like, you know what? Like, if you're unwilling to do that, then you're a terrorist simp.
This is what... and by the way, it's almost predictable. We know exactly what you're going to say before you say it. Mm-hmm. It's like, you guys are brainwashed. I'm like, well, that's what they always say. Mm-hmm. I can't convince you. I can't make a solid argument. So my only conclusion is you must be brainwashed. Oh, you listen to propaganda. I'm like, so do you. Like he
Mhm.
actually shared, like he wanted us to post on his show a video, like a YouTube video. He's like, "Can you please show it on the screen?" And I just
Like,
checked it really
no.
quick. I'm like, that's a 47-minute long
Oh my goodness.
video, and it's from Al Jazeera, and it's
Oh.
arguing that it's basically a propaganda, like, video talking about how Palestinians are the poor victims in this whole thing. I'm like, you're telling me I'm brainwashed? Yeah, go for it, buddy.
Yep.
Tell yourself what you want. I'm like,
Yeah,
it-
like
it-
I'm sure we're gonna like this is just good preparation for Thursday because we're gonna probably have quite a few of these discussions by the crazy terrorist simps outside of Ben Shapiro's show that we're going to on Thursday.
oh yeah, it's gonna be.
So it's
I-
we're well prepared.
My favorite thing is like he violated Godwin's law at the very
Mhm.
end.
Yep.
Like Israel or Nazis. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
not only is that incredibly inappropriate,
Yeah.
because
Well, and I was
Jews
actually
live-
interested because I was like, interesting how Twitch allows you to claim that Israel are Nazis.
Yeah.
Because usually, like, Twitch will have massive issues with people like posting that sort of stuff, and as the moderator, I have to like approve all of those kind of comments, and I'm
Mhm.
like, so you'll allow this? But like, considering what we're going to be talking about in a little bit with Hassan Piker,
yeah,
and all of that sort of stuff. Like the stuff that they were putting on the Twitch stream for his show with Ethan Klein. I'm like, you know what? Like, screw you, Twitch. You're just such Hamas simps.
Yeah, and there are lines that I consider are like, you don't cross these kind of lines, like lines of decency. One of those lines is the one group you never call like anywhere even remotely like make a comparison to the Nazis is the Jews.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I don't like that people call conservatives Nazis.
I
they
think it's
call
a foolish
Christians
comparison.
Nazis.
Yep.
It's a foolish comparison, but when you get to the Jews,
Yeah.
I'm like,
then you're
now
just
you're
like,
getting
okay,
into,
you're
like,
just being stupid.
and incredibly like inappropriate. Like that is like the Jews were like, was it 5 million Jews? 5 to 7 million Jews
7, yeah.
were killed in cold blood by the Nazi Party in Germany is one of the biggest human atrocities in human history, and you just flip it off like it's nothing. And I'm just like, do you have any idea how incredibly offensive that is? Like that you're basically comparing a group who was killed in massive, like genocided.
Yeah,
it was a full on like human genocide, and you're basically using genocide like it's like just like the most flippant word ever. I'm like, give me a break.
Yep. But
yeah,
so it's gonna be interesting because like tomorrow,
Thursday.
No, tomorrow.
Oh, you thought? Oh, okay.
So tomorrow after work, I'm going to be. So I didn't do it over the weekend. I didn't wake up super early yesterday or this morning. But tomorrow, like a break, I'm gonna go and buy paint, and then I'm going to repaint all of the rocks. And it's going to be like myself and other people can like help out, contribute as much as they want to making sure that the rocks that we have, that the University of Calgary has on campus, that were repainted to cover over tributes to veterans, that they will be kept to remain a tribute to veterans for the remainder of the month of November. So, yep, that's going to be a bit of an undertaking. Sometimes I might have to wake up pretty darn early in the morning. But, so I'm going to do it tomorrow. I have some people who've already volunteered to help out when they're on or around the university. So if you would like to help out in this mission, in this crusade, then let us know. And I can sort of set up maybe like a conversation chat or like a message thread. And we can sort of coordinate when people are available. And if you can't contribute via painting the rocks, if you want to contribute in terms of like helping to pay for the paint, that would help too. Because I would guesstimate it probably takes about $50 worth of paint to do the 3 rocks fully.
Yeah.
So that's every single time. And if these pro-Hamasniks continue to cover up and desecrate the tributes to the fallen, then yeah, it's going to take a lot of money really, really fast. So, this is something where it would help to have quite a few people to rise up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically like, full on entitlement from leftists.
Yeah.
Yeah. But speaking of entitlement,
speaking of entitlement, let's just briefly drop back into Megan Rapinoe. So ESPN's former ESPN host Sage Steele reignited her feud with U.S. soccer star Megan Rapinoe on Tuesday after the athletes claimed that her injury proved there is no God. During the Women's National Soccer League Championship on Saturday, Rapinoe was injured within the first 6 minutes and forced to leave the game. The injury was especially hurtful for Rapinoe since it was her last professional game. So we already showed the video. The comment went viral and many people are criticizing Rapinoe, including Steele. So she wrote, "Narcissism at its finest." Steele came under fire from Rapinoe back in July after criticizing efforts to include transgender women, otherwise known as men, in women's sports. In the past, Steele has expressed support for NCAA swimmer Riley Gaines for advocacy to keep women's sports fair. Steele declared that she stands with Gaines and called what has occurred with trans people overtaking women's sports ridiculous, heartbreaking, difficult to watch, and added the hashtag Save Women's Sports.
Yeah.
So Rapinoe called this transphobic. You know what? Steele is right. Steele is definitely right.
By the way, really quick side note on this. So anybody who has trouble with the whole transphobic and homophobic accusation, you need to understand what those are. They claim to be about intolerance. Like, you call someone who's intolerant that's a lie. What they are, they're blasphemy. Okay? That's really what they are. Because they consider transgenderism and being gay as sacred. Anything that's sacred, you are not allowed to criticize, question, or in any way say anything negative about it. That's blasphemy. Okay? That's how it operates. It's in practice, it's a blasphemy law, it's a blasphemy term. Like if you're like, speaking of Muslims, if you're in a Muslim country, guess what's sacred and you're not allowed to criticize, question, or oppose in any form or way, Stephen? What is the one thing you're not allowed to oppose or question or criticize?
Allah.
In a Muslim country? Allah or Muhammad. They're sacred. Hence, anything, if you say or do anything negative against them, then that's blasphemy. So Megan Rapinoe is just following the same leftist logic that these things are sacred. Hence, any opposition to them is blasphemy, or AKA transphobia. So don't buy it. It's not what they say it is. It's a lie. It's basically It's basically just saying you can't speak against that because this is sacred.
You can't say anything. You're not allowed.
You're not allowed. He spoke and did the thing.
He spoke and did the thing. He spoke and did the thing.
That's right. That's right.
But speaking of people speaking and doing the thing, I guess it's, interesting comparison, but all right.
I like that transition. That works.
All right. So Outkick. Dana White told sponsor to go F himself for asking him to take down Trump video. UFC is the only major sports league that doesn't police what athletes say or pressure them to adopt certain progressive politics. Dana White is the only leader in sport who is not beholden to the whims of corporate sponsors.
Amen, brother.
I find that line interesting.
Because of the whole Bud Light thing?
Well, Dana White, when he said, if he said, yeah, I'm just taking Bud Light's money, they're just trying to get themselves back, but I'm just taking their money. But, it was very odd when he was like, yeah, no, this represents, we have a core alignment of values. And I'm like, okay. So
he's trying to pretend Bud Light is, it's 85, 90% of Bud Light is great. It's it's that 10% that we hate. That's a real issue. The fact that they basically stabbed their entire customer base in the back and then laughed about it and then basically did nothing to apologize or to address it.
Yeah,
it's
I know. We've talked about the issues of Bud Light many times here on the show.
That's right.
And I'd be interesting to go back a few weeks ago, because a few weeks ago we were don't know how we feel about UFC.
Yeah. By the way, can you actually show the video of Trump arriving at UFC?
Sure.
Yeah, show that.
How strong that team is, making his way into the building. One of the fans, I know President Donald Trump taking his octagon side seat for UFC
USA,
295. We got 2 title fights coming up at UFC 295 here in a matter of moments, live from Madison Square Garden. And President Trump will be here to witness all of it. 4 of the very best fighters in the world set to take their cracks at light heavyweight.
Yeah, I think that's amazing because you know where that took place, right?
New York. Yep.
New York, which is like the most blue area imaginable in all of the United States. Like, like outside of like maybe LA and Portland, New York is like as blue as they come, and people love them. And these are like just regular, like, New Yorkers, and they're like, yeah, we love Trump, we love like Tucker Carlson. It kind of goes against the whole narrative of like that, like Democrats hate him with a passion. I'm like, I don't know. I think it's unlikely because Trump is loved all over the United States. Like Polyev is loved everywhere he goes here in Canada. There's very few places that Polyev goes that don't instantly sell out and like get jam packed full of people. So good on UFC, good on Trump. I'm like, man, this is awesome. I like to see that Trump energy. I do. Trump is a celebrity in his own right, man.
He is a celebrity.
He walks into a room, people light up like crazy. It's there's something really electric about it. Like, which whether or not you like the guy, whether or not you think he's going to be like, like the winner or whatever, you can't deny that he basically like is a giant draw.
He is a giant draw. He is a giant draw.
Which is awesome.
Both directions.
But speaking of something that is not a giant draw, Steven, how's that for a transition?
Okay, hold on.
Let's talk about the marbles.
Just got to refresh my camera. There we go.
It's getting a little foggy.
Little foggy.
You ruined my transition, man.
Yeah, well, had to do it.
Speaking of something that's not a massive draw, let's talk about the marbles.
The Marvels misfires with 47 million, lowest MCU opening weekend of all time.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty.
So, MCU is no longer a bulletproof box office franchise. That much is clear after the Marvels misfired with $47 million in its opening weekend, allowing the worst debut in MCU history. Initial tracking was closer to 75 million, but those projections shrank dramatically in weeks to 60 million, with bad buzz and actors like Brie Larson unable to promote the film due to the SAG strike, which finally ended on Friday. The Marvels didn't even match those disappointing estimates. So only 2 other films in the sprawling series, The Marvel is the 33rd installment in 15 years, is open to lower than 60 million. 2008's The Incredible Hulk with 55.4 million, and 2015 Ant-Man with 57.2 million. And both of those were actually like
Ant-Man was good. I like that.
I actually liked both of those films.
Yeah,
like I really did like what was his face?
I know you're talking about that. The guy from
Fight Club. Yeah, Edward Norton. He was good as Bruce Banner. Like he actually showcased like the inner struggle of Hulk, whereas Mark Ruffalo is just like, I'm always angry, and it's like that's a cop out.
I know it was not a good line, but
it was a terrible line.
But like the Marvels are interesting because people like there's been this long debate over a couple things. Like there's been long debate over whether or not Brie Larson killed basically Marvel, because during the Avengers saga, it was obvious that Brie Larson was like literally like saying every stupid thing imaginable, and people hated her. So was it Brie Larson that killed Captain Marvel, or was it Captain Marvel itself that killed Captain Marvel? Because the comic book itself was never popular. People like who are into comic books know
the Captain Marvel comic book was never popular, but Captain Marvel as a part of the Avengers was an actually liked character.
Yes,
because she wasn't this like Captain Marvel in the comics is not this like, oh, I'm the voice for female empowerment and men are the voice of evil. It's like, no,
right.
Like she's in the comics.
Yeah.
Like in the movie, she is a part of the military. And so she often has squabbles because she's sort of like if you think in the Civil War references. So like in Civil War, Captain America fights against kind of government interference, government protocol. Iron Man is like, yes, we need to have government protocol. And then she was like the big enforcer on the side of government protocol because she's like, no, like the government is on the side. Like she was very pro big government. She's like, the government is pretty much always right. And then like there's a lot of like inner controversy and inner struggle and turmoil because of these constant like, no, the government does a lot of bad things. And sometimes people who stand up for what is right, instead of just being paid to do it and being told by others that they have to do it, is better because it inspires others a lot more. So the character in the comics, like if they did her character right, then I would have been fine. But it was the fact that she basically was the driving force.
She was the face of the MCU.
Well, yeah, they wanted to turn her into the face of the MCU, and I'm like, that is going to flop.
She.
Oh, she. Oh, yes, the MCU.
Which is the thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was. And I've actually heard that there is a line in this film, like legitimate line. And so the black character, Monica Rambeau, I believe it is.
Rambeau, yeah. From,
I believe I heard from somebody that there is a line in the film where I think it's Brie Larson's character, and she asks her, she's like, you need to learn how to fly right now. Like, you have the capacity for it. And she's like, I don't know how. And she literally says, use your black girl magic. And I'm like, what? That's an actual line?
I thought that was a joke. They were making that joke on Nerdrotic. I didn't actually realize that they
No, that was a real line.
They pulled it from the movie.
Yeah, pulled it from the movie. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's
amazing.
But yes,
that's amazing.
As we rejoice, get woke, go broke.
It's the ultimate, yeah.
You have the MCU can still be saved. Like,
well, you have to restart it at this point.
Hello, console document. Welcome back.
Welcome back, bro.
We welcome you back into the fold. You missed a very interesting terrorist
debate.
I wouldn't even call it. It wasn't even a debate. It was just like, he's like, Hamas is a freedom fighting group. Believe them. And I'm like, no.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Long time no see. Indeed. Well, you're not going to see us on Thursday, so.
No.
Well, okay. That is actually, depending on how the crowd is like. If there's not a huge crowd and we have the opportunity to do kind of
interviews,
more in-depth interviews, then we'll upload it later. If it's like a busy crowd and we're kind of doing, well, I'm describing that, Console Dog. So we'll do a live stream, and I'll set up my phone to live stream to Twitch.
Sorry, he tends to be long-winded. This is the problem.
I'm long-winded.
I get to the point, man. It's got to get to the point.
Anyway, so we will try and live stream from my phone to Twitch of the entire event. So we'll see what happens.
There's a Ben Shapiro event here in Calgary. We're going to go there live to see what's up.
Yeah.
Which is why we're not going to be here on Thursday.
Yeah. But
yeah, that was quick.
Speaking of people who hate Ben Shapiro.
Oh, people who hate
Hassan Piker hates Ben Shapiro. Leftist streamer Hassan Piker justifies Hamas baby beheadings as both legal and moral.
Of course he does.
So one of the most influential political personalities on the internet tried to justify Hamas's recent murder of Israeli babies as a matter of law and maybe even a matter of morality. While on the Leftovers podcast, he said this is going to sound very radical and possibly very violent, but this is a matter of law, and that maybe if you agree with this as a matter of morality, Palestinians have the legal right to violently seize back their homes from the settlers. Piker
So here, can I intervene really quick? So here's the argument, and by the way, this is purely a left wing, because the one thorough line of every left wing transgressive movement, from feminism to LGBT queer theory to Black Lives Matter to everything else, to even the Hamas and all that, is the oppressor versus the oppressed. The oppressed can do whatever they want, and it's totally justifiable. Hence why Black people are allowed to say every kind of racist thing you can imagine. And it's totally cool because they're the oppressed. That's the theory. And he's really only bringing the ideology to his logical conclusion. Where these people are oppressed. Well, everything that they do is nice and legal. That's the way they see the world.
Yep. And so, continuing on what he says, he vaguely invokes the concept of international law, which clearly does not allow for the intentional killing of civilian non-combatants, an apparent effort to dodge publicly acknowledging that what his rhetoric suggests, that he is okay with Islamic terrorists dismembering his Israeli children and beheading babies. So this is the clip.
Palestinians, and this is going to sound very radical and possibly very violent, but this is a matter of law, and maybe even if you agree with this, a matter of morality. Palestinians have the legal ground to violently seize back their own homes from the settlers. This is a reality, and that is precisely the reason why they have to exist under endless occupation in the West Bank.
And that's why I say, if it was settlers, that would be a lot more understandable. Yeah. But let's not obfuscate, okay? I understand what you're saying, but this dude just called babies militants.
No, I understand, and there are baby settlers as well. But there are baby settlers as well. There are babies in the settlements.
But the babies that killed were not.
I know.
Okay, so
there are babies in the settlements. Like, yikes!
Do they normally talk that fast?
No, that's sped up.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that seems that. And what's the deal with Ethan Klein? He looks like sick.
Well, Ethan is very. He's under a lot of he walked off that podcast.
Did he?
Yeah, the later on, because he's just like, I'm so tired, because like apparently the entire show, like he was having a big back and forth, because apparently Ethan Klein's wife is a member of the IDF or an ex-member of the IDF.
Yep.
And he's sort of like, he's an unorthodox Jew, not a religious Jew, but sort of like cultural Jew. And so he's like, well, like I'm not in favor of what's going on, but I think that Hamas is evil. And then simply because he was saying that Hamas is evil, then a whole bunch of people on the stream were like, oh, like we'll find you and we'll kill you, Zionist pig. And so like it was kind of getting to him by the end of the stream. And then he kind of just like he's like, I'm done. I can't deal with all of this attacks and all of this pressure because you lot are literally calling for my death and me and my wife. And Hassan, you're kind of just like nodding and going along with it because you hate Israel that much. And he's like, I'm done. And we're going to probably put a hold on this podcast because this is ridiculous.
I think what's happening is that people, a lot of these people they never stop to think the implications of what they say. And that's the problem, is that a lot of these transgressive movements, it's all about like, this aligns with what I believe and the way I believe things, right? And so I'm just going to follow it through, not thinking about the implications of what they're actually calling for and the consequences of what these ideas will do. And like, I think Ethan Klein is running face first into a really heavy dose of reality. He's like, I'm basically talking to a lot of people that want that if they had the opportunity, they
would kill me. Yep.
Like this is why the whole Israel-Palestine thing, and particularly like last month and all the demonstrations and things that have been happening, has been a gigantic black eye for the leftist movement. Like even to the point where like Amy Schumer was like reposting something from like a Campus Crusade or a conservative group or something like that, which is nuts because you're like, these people are realizing like I'm actually like, joining hands or locking arms with people who are justifying like human atrocities. And they're like, oh crap, like how did I get myself into this mess? And a lot of people are realizing this is nuts, but they don't know how to get out of it because it's the intersectional coalition that they've basically been dragged into. Now they're realizing like, holy crap, this is bad. This is really, really bad. So I think it was crazy to see this. And like this, Ethan Klein is about as lefty as they come. He really is.
Oh yeah. Like I think we all can remember, I think it was probably 2 years ago now.
Yep.
Where Ethan Klein openly said, be like, oh yeah, if the Nazis took over, I would be the first to hand over Ben Shapiro and his family to them.
What a lovely guy.
And I'm like, yikes, that's horrifying. But that's kind of just who some people are.
It's
truly terrifying.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, before you do the story, like I don't know if everyone saw the video. Maybe you could show part of it.
Okay, so we'll kind of go back and we'll watch a little bit of it. So,
because like I think it was like only like us and that.
Yeah, it was
that
that Hamas simp. So
Yeah.
let's watch it again. Let's watch just the second half of it. So this is basically they're asking students at the UN students or the school UN school in Jerusalem, and so they have their names, and this is what they are saying.
الصهيونية هم أعدائنا وهم أهم شيء لازم يسوي فيهم عملية.
يعني إنهم بيعلمونا بالمدرسة إنهم إرهابيين
بيحكوا لنا عن اليهود.
Teach us about the Jews.
إنهم هدول مش مناح وهدول بقتلوا قاعدين بشبابنا.
Teach us they're bad people. They killed our young.
هدول غدارين. وبيحكوا لنا إنه هدول بغدرونا هدول مش مناح.
They teach us in school that Jews are fickle, bad people.
بدعس عليهم. عمل عمليات.
I'm ready to stab at you
الدعس.
and drive a car over them. I will fight. We have to constantly stab them, drive over them, and shoot them, the Jews. Stabbing and running over Jews brings dignity to the Palestinians. I'm going to run them over and stab them with knives. Right now, I'm prepared to be a suicide bomber. With Allah's help, I will fight for ISIS, the Islamic State.
Yep.
By the way, if you run into a kid here in North America who was saying like, "Oh yeah, my parents, my parents are teaching me. My parents are teaching me that I should like like any group. I was like I should like literally like I want to stab black people and I want to run them over with cars and I want to like completely like kill them and all that. That killing them brings dignity to our community or something like that.
Yeah.
They'd be immediately removed and the parents would probably be charged with that kind of like
I just had a terrible. I just had a terrible thing come to mind. So
what?
I immediately thought of the song from Mulan when she's like getting her makeup done.
Okay.
Killing them brings honor to us all. And it's like
it's a
like,
weird
it's
thought,
true,
isn't
though.
it? It's a weird thought that they think
It's
that
so weird.
like it brings dignity to Palestine. Like what brings dignity to your people? What honors your people?
Mass
is
murder.
Dead Jews. Dead Jews. That's what brings honor. Like it's incredible that people believe. Like people are trying to argue.
It's so interesting that people are like, oh, like the worst people in society, the worst groups are Christian white males. It's like, okay, well, what do Christians teach their children? Honestly, what do they teach their children? And it's like, okay, what is my number one goal? My number one goal is to raise my children to be following God, to be morally upright, to be righteous, to be like upstanding citizens, to
treat people with respect,
people
even
with
your enemies,
decency and respect, and all these things. And it's like, okay, then you ask like a Muslim who is bringing their child up, and it's like, well, I want my child to die in the name of Allah, and then they'll be like, what?
I want my child to stab Jews. Good boy.
To kill infidels.
Yeah, here's a you stabbed those two Jews. Here's a popsicle for you.
Yeah, here's a popsicle.
Yeah.
Yeah, play stab. You go play Stab the Jew. Which is apparently a prominent game in Palestine.
Yes, and here's the thing: people are trying to say not all Palestinians or not all people in Gaza, and I'm like, that is a very difficult case to make when you have Palestinians cheering when the terrorists brought back hostages that were like being like held and beaten and all that kind of stuff. When you have children saying that they want to kill Jews, and when you have like people throughout Palestine who have been recorded saying like, no, I want my family, my children, and my wife to die honorably in defense against the infidel. Like it's really tough to make that case that like, oh, not all Palestinians. I'm like, when you have that kind of like a cultural like problem, and when you see Muslims all over the Muslim world and in Western countries all supporting Hamas, pretty much defending what Hamas did, you start to realize that this is not even cultural, this is religious. People say like it's not a religious war. I'm like, no, for Muslims it is. A lot of Muslims, they see it as a religious war, which means they don't think like us.
Nope.
Most Westerners do not think
that is one thing that you really have to kind of drill into people.
Yeah.
Is they don't have the same values.
Oh yeah.
Like there is not in North America, it's like, oh, like think of the civilians. It's like, yeah, we think about that. Because we've been raised to value life, because that's what happens in Western society when you are raised protecting and valuing human life, because you are taught from a very young age about the dignity of human life.
Yeah. I mean, historically, that was never the case. In the past, before Christian culture really took over the West, it was normal to sacrifice children and women in favor of the men, because the men were stronger. The men were the ones that, that provided. They're the ones that had skills. They're the ones that defended a kingdom. They were far more valuable than women and children. It was really only after Christendom started taking over that value was like adopted universally. So it's not normal.
No, it's not.
We think it's normal because we've grown up with it, but that's not a normal value in society.
Yeah. All right, let's continue on finishing up these updates about what's going on in Israel. So Israeli soldiers storm Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza to root out Hamas terrorists. U.S. intelligence says are hiding in an underground command center as Palestinian authorities call for ceasefire to evacuate trapped civilians. We've known for years that Al-Shifa was one of their headquarters.
Yeah.
We've known that for ages. This is nothing new, and they're cowards to hide there. Absolute pitiful, disgusting cowards. And yeah, UN estimates at least 2,300 patients, staff, and displaced civilians are inside because Hamas trapped them there. So the Israeli military entered the hospital early Wednesday morning in a precise and targeted operation against Hamas in a specified area of the facility. The IDF said in a statement the army surrounded the facility as part of its ground offensive against Hamas. Israeli authorities claim the militants concealed military operations in the facility, which is supported by an earlier statement by the White House. National Security Councilman John Kirby said yesterday that Hamas and Islamic Jihad operate a command and control node from Al-Shifa in Gaza City. They have stored weapons there, pretending to prepared to respond to an Israeli military operation against that facility. IDF have publicly warned time and again that Hamas's continued military use of Al-Shifa hospital jeopardizes its protected status under international law. No kidding.
That's called a war crime.
Yep, that is it's funny that they're like, oh, we have to speak out against the Jews and their war crimes. And I'm like, okay, name how many times, do you know how many times Palestine has violated the Geneva Convention?
Oh, I imagine dozens.
Dozens, if not hundreds.
If not hundreds, yeah.
There are probably hundreds of individual incidents of Palestinians and Hamas terrorists violating the Geneva Convention by putting civilians in harm's way. The Geneva Convention was put up for a reason. Because it's to prevent issues like this.
Yep.
Like, Ben Shapiro actually has a really good argument against this. And it's like, okay, the Allies killed more Germans and more German civilians than American and British civilians. Did that make what they did wrong? And it's like, yes, there are going to be civilian casualties. Now, according to the Geneva Convention, you cannot deliberately target civilians, which is what Hamas does, but it's not what the IDF does.
Nope.
So, Disa for Jinx. Oh my gosh. Do you get that reference, Danny?
No, I don't. What is that from?
Oh, okay. I'll find the picture.
Okay.
It's a very common, meme. Of, I think it's of Schwarzenegger.
Okay. I'm curious now. I'm kind of curious as to what this is all about. I feel like I've been missing out somehow. Missing all the key demo info.
This is the video.
Okay, yeah, that's from
from Predator. Predator.
What's from Commando?
It says Predator.
It says Predator?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe. I mean, I thought it was from Commando, but
Oh, I guess Weathers.
What?
You son of a bitch.
That's crazy.
And so
I guess so.
It's a meme of whenever you meet somebody who's similar but a little bit different than you, that it's this is the giant buff handshake.
The funny thing about that is that him and that guy have been in so many movies together.
Oh yeah, they have.
I mean, it's been a
Although
Rocky.
every time I think of Carl Weathers, every single time I think of Carl Weathers, I think of Happy Gilmore and his wooden hand on the alligator.
Even though he's done so many things, like
He's done so many things since then, but every time it's just that.
Tap it in, Stevens. Just tap it in.
Just tippy tap it in.
Tappy. Don't you want to go to your home? You too good for your home?
My goodness.
That's so good.
Only the shrewd
that's
dudes
a
would
reference
turn
I got.
firm handcaked. Did we cover Tucker as possible Trump VP? We have not talked about that.
There's been no official announcement,
Yeah.
so it's hard to like mention that. We did cover like that. He went to UFC and they got like a massively, like huge, like like yeah, like I think we'll cover it when it actually happens.
Yep.
If it happens. Quick question, Stephen. Do you think Tucker would be a good vice president if he chose him? And why?
I generally like Tucker's point of view on most things.
Yep.
Like it's probably like one issue in 15 that I disagree with Tucker on.
Yeah, he's not right about everything, but he's for the most part
He's
good.
generally right, and he's generally like very matter of fact. Like I remember he was sort of like when I first started getting into and watching political stuff.
Yep.
I would find, and this was like back in probably 2017, and I had a good portion of the day when my clients would basically just hide away in her room, and I'm like, well, I have Wi-Fi, and I have my phone, and I have my charger. And so I'd play on my Nintendo Switch and I would listen to Tucker debates.
He does a good job.
So, yeah. And unfortunately, Tucker, interesting little side note, Tucker Carlson, one of our friends here in Calgary, was supposed to be interviewed by Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, that's right. We beat him.
And then Tucker had to cancel that night because that was the night that they were covering it was like the January 6th tapes.
Something big or something like that.
Yeah, it was the January, like the 30,000 hours. And so he had to cover that.
Yeah.
And so it was like, well, our friend can't make it to Tucker's show. And so he's going to do our show instead.
We got it instead. Yeah, we were pretty happy about that.
And we're like, haha, in your face, Tucker.
It was good times. Here's my take on the Tucker thing. Okay. So the real question you have to ask is, what is the point of a vice president? What benefit does he add to the president and in his run? So in 2016, Trump chose Mike Pence. What was the benefit? Is that Mike Pence brought him the evangelical vote, right? That was the big rationale behind that. Okay, way back before it was who was running against Obama? That was
Romney.
McCain.
And then Romney.
McCain ran against
with Sarah Palin.
With Sarah Palin. Okay, why did you choose Sarah Palin? Because she's a woman.
Yep.
That was the major draw, to get the women vote, right? So the question is, what does Trump gain from Tucker? He gains a very almost like a reasonable voice, but they're really pandering to the same audience, and that's one major issue I have with it. Here's why I think Vivek Ramaswamy might be a better choice, because both Vivek and Tucker Carlson are very well spoken. They're very good at presenting long form interviews. But believe it or not, Vivek adds one element that I think is as much as I hate it, it is crucial. It's the fact that he is not white. The fact that he's like an Indian American guy. I know it sounds silly, but what was the thing that they constantly accused Trump of? Is that being a white supremacist, right? And then if he has Vivek as his running mate, that whole talking point, it doesn't go away, but it's much more difficult to make that case. And on top of that, if Trump is completely and totally annihilated with a million court cases and things, Vivek can basically go and campaign on behalf of Trump, which is something that Mike Pence never could do. Same thing with Tucker. Both of them can campaign on behalf of Trump, and they can offer that ability. This is something that a lot of other people that they've chosen, for example, people have said what was her name? That Democrat lady who basically owned Kamala Harris.
Tulsi
Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard. People have thrown in Tulsi Gabbard as a possibility. I think Tulsi would be. I don't know. I think she's too. she's too aligned with Democrats to really make that kind of a difference. Some people have said Tim Scott might do the same thing, because they say like Tim Scott, because he's a black man, is going to like court the black vote. But I'm like, Vivek Ramaswamy can do the same thing, but he can also do it more effectively because he's a better public speaker. So Tucker Carlson, I think that would be good because he's got a lot of appeal. But I don't know. I don't know if he actually does as many things as Vivek Ramaswamy could do if he was a potential VP pick. That's my thoughts on that.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, continuing on. So, just lastly, covering this march that happened in D.C. 300,000 descend on D.C.'s National Mall from March, largest pro-Israel gathering in history.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So that was on Tuesday. So that was today.
Yeah,
staging what was described as the largest pro-Israel gathering in history. We're here to show the world that we won't be exterminated again, said Marco Abu. Many in the massive March for Israel crowd draped themselves in Israeli flags and held smaller versions as they listened to the stream of politicians and Hollywood types voice support for the Jewish state.
Mm-hmm.
Tens of thousands to be expected at the event, but the number swelled to an estimated 290,000, according to Conference of Presidents of Major Jewish Organizations. CEO William Daroff, the large pro-Israel gathering in history. There was also 250,000 watching on the live stream and on C-SPAN. Yeah, that's a lot of people.
I love that.
Oh, that's
I
great.
was really excited. I was so excited to see that, because like even here in Calgary, like in our hometown, I see these pro-Palestinian protests, and then you have Israeli protesters like show up on the other side of the road, and their lives are in danger.
Yep.
And I'm like, I would love
like I've mentioned this several times on the show, and like it is actually something that like even so like Dreaded White Kong and other people watching, a story from the weekend. So on Saturday, November 11th, that was Veterans Day in the United States, it was Remembrance Day here in Canada, and Armistice Day in the UK. The day before Remembrance Day, on November 5th, there was somebody had painted these rocks on the University of Calgary, and painted them to support the veterans, poppies, all these things to kind of show remembrance and respect. And then the day before Remembrance Day, they get covered over by Palestinian flags. And so our organization, True Jews Podcast, namely me, because I work close to the university. And so because of that, I can go and paint these rocks. Okay, well then that's something for mommy to deal with. But you both need to be asleep. Are you going to say hi? Okay, you say hi to Denny. Hi. Okay, good night.
Hi.
This is what happens when I'm upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways.
Daddy's always available.
Yeah, Daddy's available. It's just like, oh, you're right here. I'm going to come talk to you. Like, no, don't do that. But anyways, so yeah, we're going to be painting over them to support the vets, to support the armed forces, to support anything that's not Hamas, basically. If they paint over the vets, tempted to paint one of the rocks to be an Israeli flag, just out of pure spite. So I'm like, yeah, you guys are disrespectful. Actually support the proper cause in this fight, because you guys are not on the right side. But a couple years, so back in 2013, 10 years ago, in Calgary, there was an incident in which there was a pro-Palestine protest. 4 Israeli protesters showed up on the other side of the road to stand and wave Israeli flags. The Palestinians went across the road, beat them half to death, and the mayor basically told the cops not to arrest anybody, even though they had video footage of it happening. And all 4 of those protesters were sent to the hospital, 1 in serious condition. And it took Ezra Levant, who is the head of Rebel News. Ezra Levant posted a public bounty to bring these people to justice. And then, and only then, it was basically the same day or the day after, that the police actually arrested these people.
They should have done it at the beginning.
Oh, they should have done it. Like, it took months before they announced that they were, and they're like, oh yeah, oh no. We're publicly saying that we're pressing charges, we're arresting them. And it's like, okay, why did it take this amount of time? It doesn't take, like, in other incidents, you arrest the guy the very next, like, if it's a conservative, you're well known for arresting them the very next day. Yeah. Or arresting them at the church.
It's it's incidents like that that demonstrate the saying that we don't have a justice system, we have a law system.
Mm-hmm.
Because a justice system, everyone is treated equally under law. If you're Israeli and you beat a bunch of Palestinian protesters, you go to jail or you get arrested. If you're a Palestinian and you attack a bunch of Israeli protesters, then you get arrested and you get charged. But we live in a society right now where the rule of law is not applied equally. There's favorites, and right now, especially in the United States, you heard about this, Stephen, that the United States government decided that they're going to create an Islamophobic task force or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because even though anti-Semitism is the major problem that's emerging all over the country, it's nope, we have to basically put out the talking point and a propaganda point that the real victims here are the Muslims. That's how they operate. So these people are not honest people. These are people with an agenda who have to push the idea that the Muslims are always victims. It doesn't matter what they do. They could beat 100,000 Jews to death, but they're still the victims. They're always the victims. They can only ever be the victims. Hence, why they're going to support them. So yeah, so this is why I'm really glad that this march took place in the nation's capital. I think this is an amazing sign of solidarity and probably really encouraged a lot of Jews who are, a lot of them honestly living in a lot of fear because they're basically outnumbered and they're basically being told well, our government's going to side with the Muslims and you're basically just more of a inconvenience than an actual.
Mm-hmm. But speaking of things that are inconvenience, let's talk about the story of Jonathan Lewis.
Oh, geez, yeah.
So Jonathan Lewis, a teenage boy who was beaten up by 15 students at a high school in Las Vegas, has died. Rolled them all in prison for life, according to the boy's father. Brutally beating after the 17-year-old stood up for one of his smaller friends. A couple of kids attacked him. They weren't able to hurt him enough. They all attacked him at once. In an emotional interview with a local news station, Lewis's father remembered his son, saying he was a quiet kid and they had plans to move to Austin, Texas together. I just love my children with all my heart. I think there's a failure of all humanity to recognize that we need to be teaching our youth how to coexist. Lewis had kept his son on life support, hoping for a miracle. Lewis was an artist and considering joining the United States Navy like his grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
So,
can you show the video?
It's
already been making the rounds.
It has. Okay, so I'm going to show it. I'm going to show it without audio. That's what I'm.
And this is no. This is a news broadcast. So if it's a news broadcast,
fight that happened Wednesday afternoon. Metro officers responding to reports of a student fight
right at the bottom
across the street from Rancho High School. The investigation revealing the victim got into a physical altercation with 15 people before cops arrived.
Nothing that large, like 3 people maybe, but 15, I've never heard of that before.
Rancho High Junior Antonio Green says he's a classmate and saw the video.
It could happen to anybody. It could happen for me just because I have a natural mean face. It could happen to me just from looking at somebody the wrong way.
Neighbor Greg Bostick was shocked.
Yep. So interesting.
I've seen a lot of these videos and a lot of different. They come up all the time on Twitter. So this is the concept here is something called swarming. Okay. I think this is a swarming issue, and this is why I hate it. I hate swarming with a passion. There are so many incidents all over the world, including here in Canada, of people who were swarmed and they died or suffered massive injury. Okay? Here's how it works. You have one person who, I don't know, gets on the wrong side of some other person, and instead of being a fair fight between one person and the other person who's against them, they basically get jumped by multiple people, and the group ends up attacking the individual. And more often than not, the reason why this is so dangerous is because you as an individual, you want to be oh, I want to get in on this, and you want to take a cheap shot, you want to take a kick or a punch or whatever, throw one punch at the person, and you think, oh, I only just kicked them. I only just kind of gave them a little like a shove or something like that. But combined with everyone together, not only is the person completely and totally defenseless, but the combined effort by all these people, they often can get out of hand very quickly and the person dies. But here's the other problem: the problem is that everyone feels like, oh, I didn't kill him. Oh, I didn't do that. That was him. That was the. It's like you never feel fully responsible.
Yeah.
And that's why this is so dangerous, because the ability to feel any kind of responsibility that you are the one who causes death becomes very, very very murky. So the way I believe that there should be a law. I think hate's when you add hate crime to a crime, I don't actually think that's helpful.
No, it's not.
I don't. I think that that's just a dumb addition or a footnote that they want to oh, that's just a worse crime. I think when somebody is involved, there should be specific laws, specific legislation that targets swarming itself. Because I don't think that just because you took a small part in a swarm that you are you can't be held responsible. I think swarming should involve a much steeper fine than anything else. So as far as the criminal court, the criminal justice system, I think swarming should instantly lead to steeper penalties because it's so dangerous.
Swarming not only in attacking someone else, but there's a generic impression amongst a lot of these people that are joining in beatings, people that are joining in riots, that if they are part of the mob, that they will be safe from prosecution.
Yeah.
And there was actually a good point raised by Matt Walsh weeks ago. It's you can't arrest everybody. In this instance, you can because there's only 15. But if there's an incident where you have hundreds of people ganging up on others, then you take the ones you can and you give them immensely severe punishments.
Yeah, make an example of
them so that they do not have any motivation or any gusto to try that again because they're so afraid of the consequence that they won't even think about it. Now,
I think
I'll kind of quickly address this.
Yeah.
So speaking of harsh punishments, so I'll just quickly transition over this. So this is an incident. So not many people heard about this. So this is a story of Jillian Ludwig, college student shot and killed in Nashville. The incident of her death. Have you heard about this incident?
Yeah, I heard about it, yeah.
Okay. So they talk a lot about Ludwig, but essentially what happened was the guy that shot her wasn't out on bail. He went to trial, and the jury or the judge said that he was mentally unfit to go to trial. And so instead of putting him into an insane asylum, instead of putting him in an institution for the criminally insane or whatever to protect him, his life, and others, they released him to the general public. Do you remember? Do you know what his crime was? The first one?
I think he shot a van full of people or something like that.
Yeah, he shot into a vehicle that had children inside because he was doing. He thought it was fun.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, no, we'll just release you into the public."
Sounds like a psychopath.
And then he did the same exact thing, except this time he shot this girl in the head. So
shooting at random people in as they were driving by.
Yeah, so Taylor, the guy that shot her, was initially facing aggravated assault and evidence tampering charges while Ludwig was in critical condition. Police have not said those charges will be upgraded now that she has passed away. This guy should never, considering all the things that he has done, this is his probably 4th or 5th serious felony.
Yep.
Never see the light of day again. Oh yeah, how does that, dreaded white Kong, you're absolutely right. How does that judge sleep at night? How do many of these people...
I think, yeah.
How do so many of these people sleep soundly, knowing what they have done, knowing what they have released upon society?
No, I think that...
with their inaction. Or with their deliberate action. It's either absolute incompetence from these judges, which is really hard, because, of course, becoming a judge is a very difficult process. Or these are hyper-partisan judges, and they're just we're just trying to move towards an agenda, and this is just one step, one cog in the race.
It's the I think that's the wrong approach. You're trying to deal with this person like he's a moral person, but he's not. There are people who are just evil, straight up. They're just evil.
Yeah,
and they don't care. They don't care about the consequences. They don't care about what happens. This judge is, for whatever reason, I wouldn't even say that this is a moral person who just didn't really have an option. I'm like, no, this is like the problem is, in order to do the morally correct thing, the morally right thing, you have to be brave. You have to and whatever the reason, like if he's in a system that doesn't allow him to, I don't know, to charge people like this or something like that, doesn't matter. He has to exercise courage. He has to exercise bravery, and knowing that no, this is wrong. This person's dangerous, and I'm going to let him back on into society. The problem is that there are people who are just legitimately evil, and like appealing to their conscience doesn't work because they don't care. They literally don't care about the consequence that they wreak upon people. And sadly, right now there's an epidemic in North America and the West in general where we're pro criminal right now. We are literally pro criminal.
Mm-hmm.
Criminals get get the softest touch by the authorities, and anybody who opposes criminals is treated with the most harsh and punitive measures imaginable, way beyond what is considered reasonable. There was that incident that happened recently in the New York subway where a guy was trying to rob and possibly injure a woman on the subway, and another guy basically took the vigilante approach, took out his gun, shot in the air, and stopped the attack.
Mm-hmm.
And afterwards, they found him and they wanted to charge him, be like, "You're the worst thing imaginable." And the woman who was actually rescued or basically saved by this guy, she's like, "Well, I'm thankful that he helped, but did he have to use a gun?
Oh, yeah.
Really?" It's like
I remember there was what was it? I think it was on the Whatever podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And they were asking this woman, be like, "Oh, so if 5 people came in to your house, would you prefer if your husband had a gun to protect you or not?" She's like, "No, I wouldn't want him to have a gun." Be like, "So you're okay with them killing your husband and raping you?" And she's like, "No, I didn't say that." It's like, what do you expect them to do?
Yeah.
This is why we're such staunch advocates for people to be able to defend themselves. Because unfortunately, in our pro-criminal society, we need to be able to defend ourselves because increasingly there are more and more evil people who are going onto the streets, even notably safe or thought to be safe places.
Yeah. Politicians have a hidden agenda that most people don't see. They want to enable criminals to keep doing their stuff, and then they want to disarm you and make it so that you can't defend yourself.
Yeah.
Those are the dual goals. Right now in Canada, I've tried to tell people about this, and they're like, "That's just crazy, Danny." And I'm like, "No, it's not.
It's not.
You don't understand the movements and the source of all of these ideas. Do you think that they're just good, benevolent people that they're just trying to do their best? These politicians are really good people. They just want to do I'm like, you don't understand what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You have no idea that they're following a blueprint that was already made for them, that everyone in the West is following, which is criminals need to be given it's the Arkham Asylum, situation where the Joker basically lets loose all of the criminals and all the villains, super villains from Arkham Asylum, and throws them out into Gotham, and be like, "Well, wreak havoc." Have fun.
Okay, just because of that reference, I have to bring up this.
What's up?
So, Robot Chicken, Joker.
Did they do something like that?
Just the first maybe 30 seconds of it.
Okay.
Yeah, Joker dies, but just to show his conviction. In trial, because it's just hilarious.
And due to the persuasive testimony of the Batman, thank you, Batman, the court has decided upon the death penalty. It's out of my hands. Maurice!
It's out of my hands. He's like, "I will kill you," because just before that he's punching him, and he's like, "No, one more punch will kill you," and then he puts him to the courts, and he's like, "Due to the convincing testimony of Batman, thank you, Batman." The decided on the death penalty.
It's out of my hands.
It's out of my hands.
Kill you.
It's
I knew nothing.
Yeah, I didn't do anything. I didn't know anyone killed you.
That's right.
And so I'm like, yeah, we're not. We so afraid. Our society seems so afraid of like, oh no, we can't be judge, jury, and executioner. And it's like, well, for some cases, we should be. Like, I remember having this debate back when we were starting this show with Tate, back when we were the half-blind hecklers, and we had a debate about the death penalty. And he's like, oh, like, are you in favor of just like having the death penalty for a lot of these like assorted small crimes? I'm like, no, of course not.
Major crimes.
I want them for major crimes, for people who do only the most evil, heinous acts imaginable. Like, and I was like, we got a 30-day suspension on Twitch for suggesting that 2 men that prostituted out children should be facing a severe penalty. And they're like, oh, that's promoting hatred. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not promoting hatred, because it's promoting justice. Because those who commit the most serious, the most heinous crimes should face the most serious punishments.
Yeah. It's weaponized compassion.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think it's more like toxic compassion. People want to be compassionate, not realizing that their compassion is actually like hurting and killing people. That's the same kind of compassion, misguided compassion that drives people for like the transgender movement, and particularly with kids. It's like, you want to be compassionate, so they're appealing to like your like, vanity and your sense of like, like, oh, these people are these people are just like, like poor little people. But ultimately, like, no, it's it's just nasty. Like, like they're basically allowing thoughtless compassion to dictate their decision making, not realizing that that you're creating more and more problems as a result of that. Who texted that?
Yep. Message thread.
Is that your hun commenting? I thought so.
It's
yeah.
funny. Abby is my daughter.
Yes, she's funny.
She's funny and very cute, but
yeah,
it's like, whoops.
She's also very, very little, in case anybody needs to know.
She's 2.
Yeah, she's not like 12 or 14.
No, she just runs around and she's like, I don't have a diaper. Haha.
Yeah. That's babies for you.
Oh yeah, she does that all the time. She's like, I'm wearing a diaper, Daddy, and I'm like, And then she's like, not anymore.
I think that was all of my nieces and nephews when they were like really little. It's just a kid thing.
But interestingly enough, when they want to, the left can control their cities.
Not very often, but it happens.
We have a 9-month. Yes. When they discover how to take their diaper off, it is, oh my gosh, you are in for a world of hurt.
She's potty training herself because of it, though.
Yes, that is actually interesting. So my 2-year-old is actually learning how to potty train herself.
Wow.
So apparently, yeah, she had a brief period of time where she was without a diaper, and she went and did her business on the potty. And I was like, good for you.
You're learning. Good job. It's big milestone there.
Yeah, big milestone. So we'll see if it continues. But speaking of big milestones, but for the wrong reasons, Newsom trashed for admitting San Francisco is cleaned up for China summit. Slap in the face. I have to respect the honesty, if not the years of willful disregard for the quality of life in San Francisco residents, one journalist wrote in response.
I was kind of sad with this headline. I was kind of hoping that this would involve a slap in the face of the Gavin Newsom, but I'm like, nah. I guess it's more figurative.
So this is him talking about it. I'm just like, oof, dude,
doesn't look good.
That looking good for you.
I know folks say, oh, they're just cleaning up this place because all those fancy leaders are coming into town. That's true. Because it's true.
Because it's true.
But it's also true. For months and months and months prior to APEC, we've been having different conversations.
That is meaningless. We've been having different conversations. I don't care how many conversations you've been having, because you didn't do anything.
Let me translate. Like, it's true, and F you.
Pretty much.
Basically, it's what he's
Assumed to
doing.
be, but it's also true.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not like I think at this point it's kind of like, well, yeah, like it's a big potential of him being the Democrat nominee.
Pretty much a given. He's running a shadow campaign.
He is
It's
running a
pretty
shadow
obvious.
campaign.
It's super obvious that he's. I mean, a governor going to China to talk to like the leadership of like the Chinese like like party.
Mhm.
I'm like that only happens if you're planning to be like the nominee or something
Okay,
like that.
if we're gonna mention that, we have to bring up the video of him just bowling over this Chinese kid.
Of course we do.
Have you seen it yet?
I've heard many stories, but I haven't seen it yet. Newsom China.
Newsom China basketball.
China.
Yeah, here it is. Oh no, that's a picture.
That's an
Here's
article.
the video.
Kind of unfair. These kids are all super short.
Boom!
No, it just knocks him over.
Then he's like, ha 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 ha! That was funny when I just bowled you over because you're tiny. And the kid's like,
It's
get
funny,
away
can I-
from me,
can I
white
check
man.
Okay, to be fair, watching that video and the whole situation, like that's a lot more harmless than I was led to believe.
Oh yeah, no, like I'm not saying that he was just like, I'm going to harm this kid.
No, more like the spank. Like people kept talking about like, oh, he spanked the kid. I'm like, well, looking at that, I'm like, no, that was more like playful. Like that definitely was more playful. That's not like Joe Biden level of creepy. Like that was just more like like I feel bad, and the kid like was basically like,
Well,
so
yeah,
he's just kind of like crashing. He's just crashing.
He has the like he knows how to act in public.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Even if his opinions are horrifying, but he knows how to act. And he knows how to pull off his kind of weird and crazy charm.
Yeah.
So, Governor baiting him for a Democratic primary. Could be interesting. Which could, like, that would actually make the upcoming debate in, like, 2 weeks very interesting.
With Governor DeSantis?
Yeah, because that's, I think that's on November 30th.
The sad thing about that is that Governor DeSantis is not a good debater.
Well, he's not a good debater on his own side, but he's actually really good against like opposing.
No, I've seen him in like one-on-one interviews. I'm like, I just he's not the best. And and Gavin Newsom. The one thing that Gavin Newsom is good at, he's basically a sleazy car salesman.
He is.
The fact that he can sell California, which is like a giant dumpster fire, and he could somehow sell that shows that
somehow
he's
have people think that it's actually good.
yeah, like Reddit White Kong was saying, he's like he had Hannity drooling Hannity, and I'm like, yeah, like the thing is he's basically like Trudeau.
Yep,
he is. He's a pretty boy who just knows like what to say.
Yeah,
like goes by on his look.
He knows how to look appealing, even if his words and his policies are straight up horrifying.
Yeah, so he's obviously going to fool a lot of people because sadly, it's like the problem with a lot of Democrat cities all over the United States. They keep voting for the same thing that keeps destroying their cities, and they're too stupid to realize that
it's them doing it. And then of course they come to other places like Texas or Florida.
Yes,
and they're like, oh, don't worry, like. Those conservative Republicans, like I'm gonna vote, like I'm gonna maintain to be a Democrat, and I'm gonna bring, like I'm gonna California, Florida. And it's like, no, you will not.
The ultimate case for that was both Chicago when they got rid of like the crazy like Democrat mayor and voted for
someone even
a crazier
Democrat
mayor, or in California where they got the recall. And like they once again voted for the same idiot that was like destroying their state in the first place. Like it's just this is the problem, is that they're constantly the Democratic voters are I hate to say it, they're useful idiots, which is why they keep falling into the same problem. So like yeah, it's we'll see, but like there's a reason why they want Newsom, because they know that Newsom will be able to pull it off. The same issue that they had in here in Alberta. they ran Rachel Notley, and Rachel Notley was like horrifyingly like terrible. Hi, hello, Abby.
Say goodnight,
Hello,
everybody.
baby. Hi.
You say goodnight,
Hi,
everybody.
Good night.
Okay, you take your toy. Kiss, kiss.
Good night, Abby.
Kiss, kiss, Abby. Abby.
Good night.
Mwah. Good night.
Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see Governor Bateman.
Yeah, pretty much actually.
Yep. But
let's talk about something else sick
yeah,
going
let's
on.
talk about something. Yes, complete. Well, it's not going on anymore. It's done, but it was absolutely sick.
That happened.
So, Indy Gregory, sick baby at center of legal battle in Britain, dies. A terminally ill baby at the center of a legal battle involving her parents, British health officials, and the Italian government has died. So, Christian Concern said Indy Gregory died in the hospital Monday morning after her life support was withdrawn on Sunday. The 8-month-old baby suffered brain damage as a result of a rare condition known as mitochondrial disease. Her doctors said her life support should be removed to allow her to die at the hospital or hospice. Her parents, Dean Gregory and Claire Staniforth, fought to continue life support and hope that experimental treatments will prolong her life. The Italian government had sought permission for her to be treated at Bambino Gesù Children's Hospital in Rome and even granted the baby Italian citizenship. Doctors argued that Indy had no awareness of her surroundings, was suffering, and should be allowed to die peacefully. Repeated legal attempts backed by Christian Concern were rejected by British judges. What does that actually remind you of?
Another baby that they did the exact same thing.
No. This line in particular.
Indy had no awareness of her surroundings. The idea that she's not human because she's like
she has no sentience.
No sentience, yeah.
And it's like, wow, that's a very common argument that we see as pro-lifers.
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, like this is very similar to the case of Charlie Gard and Alfie Evans. Both of them, the British government said, no, you can't. And I remember, because I think Alfie Evans was when we were doing Half Blind Hecklers. And I remember I was tearing up on the show because I'm like, if I was that dad, I'm like, I know that I'd be arrested for it. But I'm like, I would be trying to take my son or take my daughter out of that hospital, and I'd go into that hospital with a baseball bat. And I'm like, if you try and keep me from my kid, then I'm going to break your kneecaps.
Oh, and there was a parent in Australia that did that. Like the father got pissed because they were trying to kidnap the kid, and I forget what they were doing. I don't know if they were giving him a vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that. But like the dad got pissed. The mom got mad at the dad because she felt he was like he was just making things worse.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the dad is actually the only rational person here. You have the problem here is that the government is deciding. These are death panels. The government gets to decide who lives and who dies.
Yep.
That's godlike power.
Mm-hmm.
And they always justify, like, and this is like a big difference between Judeo-Christian values and secular values.
And secular leftist values.
And the idea is that in secular values, if someone is suffering, the best thing for them is to die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is the whole argument behind MAID in Canada, like MAID, like the killing people legally in Canada, is that suffering is like the worst thing ever, and so if someone's suffering, that means that the best thing to do is to kill them. And it's like not a Christian value. If someone's suffering, the goal is to ease the suffering, to care for them. This is the whole concept of palliative care, or the concept of maybe we should help them so that they don't have to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not how they operate.
Yep.
So sad. This is one of the reasons why I cannot stand socialized medicine, and particularly single payer.
Mm-hmm.
People say it's so great because it's free. I'm like, yeah. The trade-off is that they basically own you and control all access you have to healthcare. And if they don't want to give you healthcare, they don't have to. And you Stephen, have faced that. Like your aunt has faced that.
My aunt faced that.
Many people have faced that. I know.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically
people talk about it as socialized medicine allows everybody to be treated. It's like, well, everybody to be given the same garbage level of care, and it makes the system the ultimate decider of who is worth living. Just a brief description of what happened to my aunt. My aunt developed cancer in 2021.
Yep.
And she lost her left leg. They saw a tumor in her right leg, and then they also saw a tumor in her brain. And they're like, you know what? This is what we're going to offer you. We're going to offer you hospice care. At 55, we're going to offer you hospice care. It's not worth our... They pretty much said it's not worth our time to pursue doing chemo treatments or to pursue trying to save your life because we don't think that you're going to make it. And so our family, thankfully our family is fairly good with finances, and so our family sold off some of our property, and we sent her to the United States and Mexico, and she received better treatment, and that kind of staved off the tumor in her brain and the tumor in her leg. And yes, she could die in the next few years. But I would rather spend boatloads of money to be able to see and interact with my family than to just accept that the government says, no, your life is not worth living.
Yeah, this is why I'm a free market person.
Yep, absolutely.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that the idea that, like in Mexico, like, you know, where I'm from, they nationalized a lot of industries. They nationalized gasoline. They nationalized airlines. They nationalized all sorts of different, like, you know, mining companies and all that. And the result was that every one of those industries got worse and got so bad that they finally had to, like, abandon the experiment and go back to, like, you know, free market model and let private companies once again do all of these things, because it's the idea that the government doesn't innovate and it doesn't create. It only regulates.
Yeah.
And so they suck at, like, you know, creating any kind of, like, you know, productivity. They only knows how to, like, steal your money and where to donate it, like, you know, for benevolent causes, so called. Exactly.
Benevolent causes.
So I mean, this is what the government does. Like, you know, like our Canadian government, Trudeau, whenever he's criticized for, like, for whatever's going on, he's like, but we threw money at it. Look at all the money we threw at this problem. It's like, Indigenous people don't have water, but we threw so much money at them. It's like, oh, veterans aren't getting healthcare, but we threw so much money at them.
Why didn't that solve the problem, to throw endless amounts of money?
Yeah. There were so many wildfires that last year. Wildfires, we don't know how it didn't help. Like, how is that possible? Right? Jeez.
Yeah, no, like, and I agree with Dreaded White Kong. Like, there are individuals in which, like, you reach it. For my grandmother is 97. If she got hit with cancer, then she'd be like, nope, you know what? I have lived a long, full, and prosperous life. And if this is the time that God is calling me home, then it's the time that God is calling me home. Like, I think that there's a definite difference between, like, my aunt, even though she's in her 50s, her kids still haven't graduated high school. So there is something to be said about that. And, like, there's
it's also because the school system is a terrible system right now.
Yeah,
it's broken. Terribly broken.
Yeah, like, when in 2021, that was the year that the second of the 4 cousins graduated high school. So there were still 3 kids in high school when she was, like, being told to go into hospice care.
Yeah.
So, like, the age is a factor. The age of your children is a factor. And, of course, like, it depends on the person. Like, if it was, like, for me, I'd be like, you know what? Like, if it's my time, it's my time. Yeah. Again, having the option is 100% what we're advocating for. If you
free market,
if you're willing to, like, do what you think is necessary to be able to keep your parents, keep your children, keep your family around, like, and especially when it comes to, like, young children.
I think I think what The problem is people think that the alternative is that you have to pay for everything yourself.
No.
And I'm like, I don't think that's even necessarily the case.
In this
hold on.
situation,
Let me finish this thought. So in America, one thing that they're doing in a lot of places is that they're advocating for the idea of a voucher system where each kid is allocated a certain amount of money that they normally have gotten allocated to them, like at that school, and that money is now tied to the child, to the student, and then whatever school they go to, that's where the money goes. So it creates an incentive system where, like, parents don't have to pay for these things; they're already paid for by their taxes, and they can use that voucher system to support a private school or to go homeschooling or whatever. That money always goes to the thing needed. Same thing could be said for healthcare. You could do the same thing, a voucher system, and you could create some kind of a competitive system where you have multiple companies that are all doing healthcare, and then you still have government sponsored, like, it's in like an allowance, but you have the choice of where you go. And that's going to create an actual incentive for companies to do better and to provide better service.
Yeah.
I think that's a better solution than just like paying out of pocket for everything.
Yeah, and even as I was about to say, in this situation, and in the Charlie Gard situation, and the Alfie Evans situation, they already stop talking common sense. They already had the funds raised, like the Italian government. So I will give credit to the Italian government here. Giorgia Meloni's doing some good things.
Good job, girl.
Like trying to induct this child to become an Italian citizen. And they basically said, oh yeah, like the Italian government will, with the help of the citizens, like pay for this child to receive and try and get the care that might help them to live.
Yeah, they did a good job.
So there are still some okay governments, still don't trust government as a whole, but when the government has too much power, then this is where this comes in and becomes a massive problem.
Yeah, Steve, just really quick. I got to go in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
There's a bit of an emergency call I have to make, so within the next 5 minutes if you can.
Okay, let's.
Even if you want to keep going and finish it up.
I would say just like let's just cut the show. Then we can maybe mention that on like next week. It's not a huge deal for that last segment.
Okay, cool.
About the travel warning because it's also related to the Israel stuff. So, all right. So that's where we're getting the show.
Cool.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you want to check out our other content, you can check us out at YouTube, BitChute, and Rumble. You can also check us out at theshrewddudes.com and our text platforms at Gitter, Twitter, and Facebook. You can also check out us. You can check us out on Twitch on every Tuesday and Thursday. We try and be live at about 8 p.m. Mountain Time. And of course, you can join in the chat whether you agree or disagree, like we saw with the Hamas simp earlier. Yes, Disa Kong, the worst thing anyone could hear is I'm from the government and I'm here to help. That is terrifying.
It's like the worst
truly,
thing.
Truly terrifying. Yeah, that. So, on Thursday, we will not be having our regular live stream. We won't be doing the In Our Houses regular show. What we will be doing is
the Ben Shapiro show.
Yeah, we will be going. So we will not be attending the event, but we
outside.
will be outside because with everything that's going on in the world right now, there are bound to be counter protesters outside of Ben Shapiro's event. Yep. Likely going to be a mix of Rainbow Mafia and Hamas. So that's going to be very, very interesting.
Rainbow Mafia and Terrorism.
Yeah, and Terrorism. You know, the people that love us the most. Alphabet Warriors, exactly.
Yeah, those are the ones.
We will try and have interesting conversations. If there's not a ton of people, we're going to try and have actual, like, honest to goodness interviews. If there is a bunch of people, then I think we'll probably do is Danny will he'll live stream on his phone. I'll live stream on my phone. And he'll live stream to Facebook, and I will live stream either to Twitch or to Twitter.
Yep.
Whichever one kind of works. So you can see us on either one of those platforms. So, but before you leave, if you watch our content, if you like what you see, give us a like, a comment, and tell us how we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we always like to know in ways we can improve. and the little things we can do to make our show better and to make us appreciated more by those who take time out of their day to check us out.
Mm-hmm.
So before I let anybody go, because I'm here and I'm forcing you to stay, you might try and press the X button, but you can't.
I dare you.
Yeah, I dare you. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
Stop it.
Oh, we
Stop
lost
it
so
now.
many. That's too bad. But we always like to remind you, here at the Shrewd Dudes podcast, why be rude? We are too bad for Canadians. We try. We try.
We're definitely an anomaly in Canada.
Yeah, and we are kind of the Americanadians.
That's right. That's right.
But yes, we always like to remind you, why be rude when you can be shrewd? Have a great night, everybody. We will talk to you, or hopefully try and respond to messages during the live stream. If we don't, it might not happen. We'll try and get to everybody after the show is done. So we will hopefully see you on Thursday. If not, we'll see you for Tuesday News Day next Tuesday. Have a great week, everybody. And as always, God bless.
You know better.